The story of Moses and the 10 Commandments is among the most foundational in the Bible. It reveals God's direct communication with His people and the establishment of a covenant that would shape the identity and moral framework of Israel. This documentary follows the biblical account, primarily from the books of Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, tracing the divine encounter at Mount Sinai and the giving of the law. 1. The journey to Mount Sinai. After centuries of slavery in Egypt, the people of Israel were led out by Moses through God's mighty hand, through signs and wonders, 10 devastating plagues, the miraculous parting of the Red Sea, and the destruction of Pharaoh's army. God showed His power and chose Moses as the deliverer of Israel. 3 months after leaving Egypt, the Israelites arrived at the wilderness of Sinai. Exodus 19:1. They camped at the foot of the mountain. God called Moses to the top of Mount Sinai and declared, "You have seen what I did to the Egyptians, and how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possession among all peoples." Exodus 19:4-5. God was preparing to enter into a covenant with Israel, but He demanded reverence, obedience, and purity. The people were told to consecrate themselves for 3 days and abstain from touching the mountain under penalty of death. Exodus 19:10-13. 2. God's manifestation on Mount Sinai. On the 3rd day, Mount Sinai was wrapped in smoke, fire, thunder, lightning, and the loud blast of a trumpet. The mountain trembled violently, and the people were terrified. Exodus 19:16-19. God descended upon the mountain in fire, and Moses went up to meet Him. God spoke to Moses and gave him the 10 Commandments, verbally before writing them on tablets. The people, overwhelmed by God's voice, begged Moses to speak to God on their behalf. "You speak to us, and we will listen, but do not let God speak to us, lest we die." Exodus 20:19. 3. The 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments, known in Hebrew as the 10 Words, Azeret Hadibrut, formed the core of God's covenant. They were inscribed on 2 tablets of stone, written by the very finger of God. Exodus 31-18. Here are the commandments as given in Exodus 20:1-17. 1. You shall have no other gods before me. 2. You shall not make for yourself a carved image. 3. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. 4. Remember the Sabbath day, to keep it holy. 5. Honor your father and your mother. 6. You shall not murder. 7. You shall not commit adultery. 8. You shall not steal. 9. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. 10. You shall not covet anything that is your neighbor's. These commandments were both spiritual and social, outlining man's duty to God, commands 1-4, and to fellow humans, commands 5-10. 4. The covenant confirmed. In Exodus 24, Moses came down and wrote all the words of the Lord in a book, the book of the covenant. Early in the morning, he built an altar at the foot of the mountain and offered sacrifices. Moses read the book of the covenant to the people, and they replied, "All that the Lord has spoken we will do, and we will be obedient." Exodus 24-7. Moses then sprinkled the blood of the sacrifice on the people, saying, "Behold the blood of the covenant that the Lord has made with you." Exodus 24-8. After this, Moses went back up the mountain with Joshua and remained there for 40 days and 40 nights. Exodus 24:18. 5. The golden calf and broken tablets. While Moses was on the mountain receiving further instructions from God, the people became impatient. They asked Aaron to make them a god. Aaron fashioned a golden calf from their jewelry, and they proclaimed, "These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt." Exodus 32-4. The people feasted and worshipped the idol. God saw this and was furious. He told Moses, "Go down, for your people have corrupted themselves." Exodus 32-7. Moses descended the mountain with the 2 tablets in his hands. When he saw the idolatry, he threw the tablets to the ground, shattering them. Exodus 32-19. He destroyed the calf, rebuked Aaron, and called the Levites to judgment. About 3,000 people died that day. 6. Intercession and renewal. Moses returned to God and pleaded for forgiveness, offering his own life in place of the people's. God responded with mercy but also declared that there would be consequences. Exodus 32-30-35. In Exodus 34, God instructed Moses to chisel out 2 new stone tablets. Once again, Moses ascended Mount Sinai. There, God revealed himself. The Lord, a God merciful and gracious, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin. Exodus 34-6-7. God rewrote the commandments and renewed the covenant. Moses returned with his face shining from being in God's presence. Exodus 34-29-35. From then on, he covered his face with a veil when speaking to the people. 7. The Ark and the Law. God instructed Moses to place the tablets in a sacred container called the Ark of the Covenant, made of acacia wood and overlaid with gold. Exodus 25-10-22. The ark was placed in the most holy place of the tabernacle, and above it sat the mercy seat where God would commune with his people. The 10 Commandments were the only written words placed inside the ark, signifying their supreme importance in Israel's relationship with God. Deuteronomy 10-1-5. 8. The significance of the 10 Commandments. In Deuteronomy, Moses recounted the events at Sinai to the new generation of Israelites. He emphasized that the commandments were not just rules, but the foundation of a covenant relationship with the living God. And he declared to you his covenant, which he commanded you to perform. That is, the 10 Commandments. And he wrote them on 2 tablets of stone. Deuteronomy 4:13. Moses stressed that obedience to these commandments would bring life, blessing and prosperity, while disobedience would bring curses and destruction. Deuteronomy 28:9. A lasting legacy. The 10 Commandments became central to Israel's national identity. Kings, prophets, and teachers throughout the Old Testament referred back to them. They represented God's holiness, justice, and desire for a moral people. In the New Testament, Jesus affirmed their value. When asked which commandment was greatest, he summarized them in 2. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and your neighbor as yourself. Matthew 22:37-39. These 2 commands encapsulated the spirit of the 10 Commandments. The Apostle Paul wrote, "The law is holy, and the commandment is holy and righteous and good." Romans 7:12. Yet, the New Testament also reveals that the law points to our need for grace. The commandments show sin, but only Christ provides salvation. 10. Conclusion. Moses and the 10 Commandments stand as a turning point in biblical history. On a fiery mountain, God entered into a covenant with a redeemed people, offering guidance for holy living. The commandments carved into stone represented not just law, but relationship, God's desire to dwell among his people in righteousness. They endure as timeless principles that reflect God's character. While the Israelites faltered, God's covenant mercy remained. Through the commandments and the covenant, God set the stage for the coming of the Messiah, Who would fulfill the law and write it on hearts instead of stone? As the Bible says, I will put my law within them, and I will write it on their hearts. And I will be their God, and they shall be my people. Jeremiah 31-33. The story of Moses and the 10 Commandments continues to challenge and inspire, calling every generation to seek the holy God who revealed himself on Mount Sinai.